Hi folks, thanks for watching. Today I look at Beast Wars Dinobot. He's a deluxe figure from way back in the 90s. You can see him getting a ride from Rat Trap. I don't think either guy was happy about the situation, but it happened. As you would know if you've seen the series, and in fact it was one of my favorite episodes of Beast Wars. You may have noticed this is not the figure displayed in the lead-up shots. Those pics were to remind everyone of what Hasbro released. This is actually a custom I made out of two of the future repaints of this mold. My first real custom was actually this guy right here, simply because I always wanted a Dinobot, but he can be pricey to acquire online. Different versions get even more expensive. While his repaints of this mold were quite inexpensive. I believe I paid $25 for the two. Let's take a little bit of a look more at Dinobot. Let's get rid of Rat Trap here. I will say on a side note, if you do get a Rat Trap, I know there's issues with him, period, but they didn't even paint his nose black, so please paint his nose black if you get him. Important. Let's get him standing up. You know what? Let's get his weapon in his hand. There is Beast Wars Dinobot. I think he's a cool mold. I think he's an acquisition that was necessary. I mean, if you've watched the series, you want to have this guy. He took a little bit of work. There was carving involved on his head, carving on his back, to remove some pegs that I thought were unnecessary. There's a good amount of paint, not a lot. I try to avoid overpainting. I see some customs, and I think they're awesome, don't get me wrong. Where they're using dry brushing and all kinds of different effects, but I find that makes it look like something you could not get in the store. It's something that sits on your shelf. You don't want to transform it to chip it. This guy, a lot of these paint apps are in flat colors, and then I clear coat them so that I can transform him at will and have no issue. I do like to pick up my bots and transform them. They are something that I go and grab one every day and go transform him. So let's have a look at a couple other things too. His head originally, like I said, had some hinges on it that I carved off. It was to have this weird little mutant head that they developed. I don't know if this was something before the series. A lot of these series back in the day were toys developed first, then series developed around them. This head was probably developed before the series. Obviously, the company that did the CGI said we don't need this in our storyline, so it was eliminated. And because they eliminated it, I eliminated it. It's a mess, and also when it transforms, it makes the feet not kind of go up to the chest as well as it could because of this big bubble mutant helmet. So let's get rid of that. Also, another little difference back in the day was bio cards and instructions were simply printed on the back of the bubble pack. You know, it's a little different. It had the little scissor cut dotted lines around the sides, and you'd cut them out to save them if you wanted to, or you'd just rip the bubble pack off and play with your toy. This is just so you can see. Here's his little bio. Nothing special in there. Quite simple little bio, but if you like them, there it is. And even the instructions were in the similar format. Again, fun little difference to have those on the back card from now, where it's pretty much all product shots. And that weapon is secret. Not anymore, I guess. But here's Dinobot. I'll go through some of the articulation. Obviously, his little weapon does the wicked little spin. I did carve off some of his post. You'll see in Dino mode it just looks like a poop chute, unfortunately. And I did paint his sword here a little bit. I left the tip brown because it just looks more realistic when you transform them into dino mode. I'm going to get rid of these for the moment, just to show you some articulation. Now his head is a little different than we get nowadays. The ball joint is below the neck, where nowadays you often get the ball joint in the head. That does limit his side to side and his back and forth, but still gives him a strong 360 if you need it. It's a tight ball joint. You have a nice swivel on the shoulders, again very tight. A hinge here at the shoulder as well, a bicep swivel, hinge at the elbow, and his hands can open and close. Sorry if I went out of focus there. He has ball joints at the hip, ball joints at the knee, and hinges at the feet with a heel spur that helps him stay really straight up. He's actually quite a stable figure, which I enjoy. Never hurts to have a guy who can stand up. Now, just to get it out of the way, let's show you a separate mode. I know they had the mutant head, but I think that looks pretty cool too if you want an unusual head. And if any of you guys want to send me a Maximal sticker, I know he flipped and flopped, but I'd love to put a Maximal sticker right in there. I know that's where a faction sticker should be, but there is none. Now, just before I transform him, I do just want to compare him with some of the other fellows. Let's go from small. This is a third-party erector. He's actually one of the first third parties I ever bought, and it was simply because I got him cheap. I try to avoid the third parties if I can. I'm kind of a Hasbro Takara guy. But that's a erector. I believe he's called Shafter by iGear. There's also, just to move up, here's a Scout. This is a Scout from the Dark of the Moon movie line. Now, just for fun, and I think I like to do this, if you could tell me what's wrong on him, what did I change? Because the change is very valid. But if you could tell me what I changed on this guy, I will subscribe to you. I'll do that for the first 3 people who tell me what I've changed on this guy. But you could see, if anyone has this figure, you're going to immediately see what's different about him. So let me know. We also have a deluxe figure. That was a Scout. This is a deluxe figure. Here we go with Generations GDO Cliffjumper. Really dig this character. He's obviously based off the mold from the Prime, but it's just real nice to have a Cliffjumper that has his own mold instead of just being a new head sculpt from a Bumblebee, which I really appreciate. And that just shows the deluxe sizes, which actually is pretty fair. I mean, Dinobot should be taller. And lastly, just get a Voyager in here. This is Optimus Prime. Let me get the camera up here, make sure we get him in here. Now, Optimus is from a line that I actually really enjoyed, and a series I really enjoyed. It was really fun. If you haven't checked out the animated series, or you don't have any of the animated toys, they're real intuitive. They're a lot of fun. So try to check them out. But there's Optimus in his Voyager class to compare with our deluxe Dinobot. Let's get him out of there. Let's transform this guy very simply. I do like to move his head around because now I don't have that mutant skull to mask his head, and I don't want you seeing that head when I transform him. So I flip his head, bring the dino head up. Now the back legs are going to flip around. And these little legs here are going to come up, and when you put away the heel spurs, they're going to tab in right there. And there's a port right here. Once you line them up, let's get the other fellow around. You'll notice that I left the silver paint on the inside and the brown outside just so that it didn't clash too much. I found that it was a little too obvious when I had silver on both sides, so I did remove that. I don't know why I'm having trouble pegging these fellows in. I think these arms are a little low. There we go. Sorry again, this is my third video, and I obviously haven't perfected the whole transformation on screen yet. But I assure you, I am doing my best. And the last part is bringing down the legs. Obviously there's something missing, but I will get to that in a second. Pop open these feet, give them a little knee bend. Now we close this back piece up, and that'll peg in nice and snugly, and we need to get his tail on, which you can clearly see. His tail is formed by these weapons here. Now these weapons simply plug in. There's actually a flat side, so it helps you know the angle to plug them in. You close the tail up. Once you orient the striping on the back, you can plug it in as his tail. And like I said, he does have a bit of a poop chute, and that's what I did carve down, but only enough. Honestly, I took at least a third of that off, so imagine how long that thing was previously. I also took a post off the back here, and I carved in some of the scaling after I carved off the post, just to try to, you know, it was storage for a weapon when it's a weapon that I put in his hand when he's transformed anyway. So I figured let's just try to make him look a little more accurate, a little less silly playful. Let me get this back down. I think I had it too high the whole time because of Optimus. But this is my Beast Wars Dinobot. I did basically repaint all his scales. It may be hard for you to see on the camera. Like I said, I didn't want to go too bright, too dark. I tried to make it look realistic. I could have probably went a shade darker, but I think that it looks more like his show you know, depiction than you would normally see on some of the paints. There was translucent parts and all kinds of things that I just did not like. So there's Dinobot. Let's compare him real quick to some other figures in their alt modes. Just to show you, here's a tiny little toe line. He's from the RID series. Fun little guy, easy to transform as well. Maybe we'll look at him one day. Here is a deluxe, which honestly doesn't look much bigger than the Scout class I just showed you. This is a deluxe Arms Micron Ironhide. It was based off the Prime line. In North America, it was used as cup. I've done some customizing, some rims, not everything. I even put in a little filler here in the back. It kind of looks like Back to the Future Mr. Fusion in the back, but it clears out a hole that was there. And again, let's have some fun with it. If you want a free subscription, let me know what part you think that is that I used to fill that. It's been painted and clear coated to fill that spot. just like some of the other paint apps on here. But that part came in the box. If you own this figure, you'll be able to figure that out pretty quickly. Let me know if you know what that is, and I will subscribe to your channel. So that's Ironhide in his deluxe form, a tiny deluxe form that he is. Let's go to a Voyager and one of his friends. And here we have something that's more readily available, and many of you who have any affinity towards the Beast Wars line may have, and that is Rhinox. He's a recent Voyager from the Generations line. And they scale up pretty good together, I think. I think they look alright together. So that's pretty cool, and they actually do look good in alt modes as well. But maybe one day I'll do a review of this guy and explain why I bought him. So that's basically it with Dinobot. There's not much articulation to talk about here. You can mistransform him, pop his tail, bring his legs back if you wanted to bring these feet down a bit, which you can. It does expose the head. It's a bit of a cheat, but you know, it leaves a little bit less of the foot neck. You do have ball joints on his hands. You can see my paints basically went for the blacks and silvers. I wanted to keep them simple, like I was saying. Even the eyeballs instead of the greens and all those other things. Let's get rid of Rhinox. So I hope you like what I've done. Like I said, this was one of my first customs. I do want to give you a little sneak peek of what I'm going to be showing you next, if you're interested at all. Next I am going to be looking at, let's leave Dinobot in here, that's what it's about. Next I will be looking at this Takara release of Smokescreen. I'll explain why I really just had to get this guy. I'll give you a quick hint of why. I had to get him because I wanted to do some customizing. You can see I got rid of the arm kibble on the North American release, and I've carved to be able to port all of his arm kibble here on his back. And I'm going to repaint this guy into a silver streak, and one day I'll get a review of that up. If anyone wants to see it, that is. But this guy, I wanted to look different than this guy. So he's going to have the arm kibble, but this guy's going to be repainted as a blue streak / silver streak. So I'm going to work on that. But we're going to talk about this guy on my next review. In case you haven't seen it, I haven't seen many reviews on this guy. But he's a huge improvement. He's super screen accurate. It feels a little white when you transform him, but I think you guys are going to like him. I think if you like screen accuracy for characters, this is the way to go. So thanks again for watching. Really appreciate your time. Keep in mind, my customs are to remind me of the characters I enjoy. Often I wish these were used in shows, and sometimes that's why I'm customizing, is to make a character that I believe should be in the show, and that's where I'm going with that blue streak. This guy was to create a character that was already in the show, but I wasn't impressed with what Hasbro has given us. So thanks again for your time. Hope to see you soon.